within the realm of sci-fi fantasy, there are a lot of people who are looking forward to Valerian, and it's hard to blame them because you look back on director Luc Besson's filmography, and you'll find some great movies. The Professional or Leon, wherever you're watching it, and The Fifth Element, which a lot of sci-fi fans love because it has such a unique style to it and a very different way of presenting your typical sci-fi story, I guess. Here's a movie where the lead protagonist and antagonist don't even meet each other throughout the film. They're not even really aware of each other's existence, which is unique. And now he's finally back, directing another sci-fi film based off the graphic novel, of which I'm not familiar with at all, so I don't have any basis for comparison as far as that goes. But Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is, it pretty much gives you exactly what you'd kind of expect from Besson. If you've seen the trailer, that's pretty much the movie. Which it's going to disappoint a lot of people, I think, and I think some people will walk away pleased. And I'm kind of torn between the two, really. I think I liked it a little bit more than I disliked it. But the film certainly has its share of problems. But let's talk about the good things. Let's not be so negative, for once. Let's talk about some of the good things. One of them being the overall design of a lot of the creatures and the worlds that we see. The City of a Thousand Planets is referring to this giant station, and there all these races have come together to kind of share their knowledge and their technology and everything like that. And it's really cool the glimpses we get to see inside these different cultures, and of course we have like an alien race that's very good with creating tech and keeping track of numbers, and like there's another race that's it's like underwater and so on and so forth, exactly what you'd expect. And then there's the humans, who tend to just fuck things up. Our economy is failing, as it says in the movie, so I guess not much has changed for us. But the design was really cool. I enjoyed seeing the world. And just to throw it out there, I did see the movie in 3D. Generally, I don't go see 3D movies very often because it's not very often that a movie is custom built for 3D. It's most of the time it's a post production process, a post conversion, whatever you want to call it. And that's not to say that a conversion, 3D movie can be bad. Pacific Rim was done in post, and that looks gorgeous. Then again, that was overseen by its director, Guillermo del Toro. From what it looks like, this movie was also done with 3D in mind, and it's better than most, but it didn't really do much for me, so you could probably skip 3D just in case you were interested. So again, the worlds were great, and there were a lot of fun, inventive action set pieces too. For example, there's a whole set piece that takes place on a planet where people can shop in different dimensions, and as long as you have like the right glasses and the right gear, you can access these different stores in these different dimensions. So they have like basically where all the tourists go, they shop in that dimension, and there's the seedy underworld dimension, stuff like that, and there's a whole action set piece that takes place exploring those dimensions, and I thought that was really cool. That's exactly what I've kind of come to expect from a Besson, sci-fi film. In fact, one of my favorite sequences in the film is actually the opening sequence, where we kind of track mankind's history in exploring space, and it starts with our past, and they're playing David Bowie, Ground Control to Major Tom. And as we travel forward in time, it shows the space station being built and us meeting these different aliens and the station growing bigger and bigger. And it was a very optimistic look at our future. It was kind of reminiscent of Star Trek a little bit, where we run into all these cultures and there's no battle. It's not Independence Day or anything like that. It's essentially us shaking hands with these different cultures and agreeing to coexist and work together to build something great. And I thought it was a really cool sequence, and it set the tone for the film really well. Besson has always been really good about kind of crafting his world, and that's no different here. So it's a really cool world to visit, and the visuals for the most part are pretty fantastic most of the time. Most of the time. So to jump on the negative side of things, we get into the story. The story is really nothing, out of the ordinary. And in fact, as the film opens, we see an alien culture and a little bit of how they work and operate, and then we witness, the culture's demise for the most part. The MacGuffin of this movie is a little alien creature that can basically replicate whatever you put in its mouth. So it's something very small, and something important to this alien race is these little pearls that contain a lot of power. They can power things, and our heroes get their hands on what seems to be the last of these creatures. So the race is on to kind of, the alien race wants these creatures, human government wants this creature, And that's the kind of overall gist of the story. There's not really many twists and turns that you won't see coming as far as the story goes, so I don't consider it much of a spoiler, Although the film does take great lengths to explain what's going on very thoroughly, which is annoying. And one of the cases is the introduction of our lead characters, which is also I think a big problem with the movie. Dane DeHaan plays the lead character, Valerian, and his partner in the film is Laureline, who's played by Cara Delevingne. And Dane, he's an interesting actor. He kind of usually plays as kind of like very introspective, like a lot of turmoil within angsty, characters. So here he's kind of supposed to be like the wisecracking heroic guy. It doesn't quite work. And actually Cara fares a lot better than he does. I mean, she doesn't work all the time, but then again, the material she's given is kind of hard too. Going back to the story, in the opening, she has to basically regurgitate all this dialogue that tells the audience who the characters are. The scenes I'm talking about at the beginning of every movie where we have to get across important information, where the character is like, Tony, my brother, I haven't seen you in 5 years, where they exclaim out loud, like, who the fuck are these characters talking to? Us, the audience, because they have to get that information out somewhere. But it's so obvious in this movie. Basically, there's an entire scene where Laureline is just like, oh, you're such a player and this thing and these, and you have a whole playlist of women and you do this, and I'm like, why is she saying all this stuff? These two have been partners for some time, and it's just weird. And even in one of the final scenes of the movie, Valerian is like, I play by the rules, I can't do this and stuff like that. I'm like, what? Where is this coming from? Does she not know this guy? It's such a weird thing to slip in that exposition like so obviously within the dialogue. But this is a movie that is aiming at the widest possible margin of people. I mean, there are very like kiddie things thrown throughout the movie, and then stuff that appeals to older people. Like, to be honest, half the time I'm watching this movie and I'm like, is this trying to appeal to kids? I guess so. And then they throw in like a sexy striptease with Rihanna, and I'm like, well, I could be for the kids, but I think it's more for me, kind of thing. It's weird. They wants to have its cake and eat it too. And going back to our lead characters, Dane doesn't really have the charisma to pull this lead character off. He cracks one-liners, and let me tell you, this movie has some of the most like eye-rolling groaner of one-liners you've ever heard. They're really bad, and it may just make you laugh, just like because how bad it is, stuff like that. But they do this really weird thing where Valerian asks Laureline to marry him at the start of the movie. Now, and she turns him down, and throughout the rest of the movie, Valerian's like, you want to marry me now? How about now? Stuff like that. It's really annoying. It's really fucking annoying. Like, it was grating, really. It wasn't, cute or anything like that. I mean, the best comparison I could make is like, imagine watching Guardians of the Galaxy, and immediately when Star-Lord runs into Gamora, he's like, oh my god, I have to quit my playing ways, will you marry me? And and he just kept that up throughout the movie without trying to win her over or anything like that. Now granted, Valerian and Laureline have known each other already when the movie starts, but that's what it feels like for the audience, because we haven't witnessed their relationship. I mean, it's literally the opening scene where he asks for her hand, and it's just like, so. And it's not like a will they or won't they. It's like, all right, when is the story going to come around to where they actually, hook up and stuff like that? Well, the end, obviously, that's the best part for them to do that. Not the best part of the movie. Again, the chemistry between the two, it's weird the way they're written, and they just don't have the charisma to pull it off. Not by a long shot. It doesn't work. However, the movie does move along at a pretty decent pace, at least the first 2/3. As we get towards the end, there are a few scenes that seem like they're taking a sidetrack just to delay, the rest of the main story. For example, there's this whole kind of side plot where Laureline gets captured, and Valerian has to sneak into an area with these aliens, but the aliens won't let any other species in. It's just them. So he has to find another alien that can shapeshift into that alien, and that's where Rihanna comes into play. But when they finally get in there, inside this little alien place, Valerian just proceeds to skewer like dozens of them with a sword, even going so far as to kill the emperor of the species. And I couldn't help but think, like, God, if there is a sequel, do we get to explore the ramifications of, like, a government agent killing the emperor of a species? That's got to be rough, man. That's more than a slap on the wrist, So it almost seemed like they took that side plot just to introduce this shape-shifting character and give us a song and dance number because everyone likes the song, and little dance number that was in Fifth Element. That's what it felt like to me. And also, there's kind of nods to other movies. Now, I understand that the Valerian source novels came out before Star Wars, but, like, there's still some scenes that reminded me of Star Wars. Like, there's a sequence underwater where there's a bigger fish, kind of thing, and it reminded me of Episode 1 a little bit. And there's even a scene where they go down a trash chute to escape. So a little stuff like that, nods like that. The third act just drags on to tell the audience every little thing that we already know. It's one of those boring things, and it's not suspenseful at all as far as what's going to happen. It's well telegraphed in advance. So it's one of those cases where you're just sitting there waiting for things to play out so you can get out of your fucking seat and go do something else. And unfortunately, it's just kind of one of those movies that a couple hours after you see it, it's already gone from memory. It's... you look back on the movie, it's like, well, I felt like I just watched the trailer, just much longer. And that's kind of it. I think people who keep their expectations low and are familiar with Luc Besson's, particular brand of, I guess, tongue-in-cheek humor, they'll probably get a little bit more out of it, especially the design, of the film and a lot of the characters and creatures. But anyone else looking for something really different or even expecting like another Fifth Element, I think they'll be disappointed, to be honest, because again, it really comes down to the two leads. It's they just don't have a relationship that works or the charisma to pull it off. Again, I don't think Dane is a bad actor. I think he was just miscast in this role. And Cara actually fares much better. So it's hard to say, given the material she had to spit out, whether or not it was up to her. But I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. I'm not really familiar with her work outside of doing, creepy dancing and Suicide Squad, so I really can't speak on behalf of her talents. With all that said, though, of course, I'm already hearing talk about a sequel and a trilogy. And to be honest, I'm all aboard to see a sequel to this, because I do think Luc Besson created a really interesting world with a lot more to explore. And especially given that one of my gripes with the heroes of the film is this awkward love "Will you marry me?" thing, they keep, hitting us over the head with throughout the film is resolved. Spoilers, I guess, at the end of the movie. Maybe we can work past that and find a more interesting dynamic for our lead characters going forward in the sequel. Maybe work on a different angle for Dane, not trying to be all chummy and deliver one-liners and be like the kind of Han Solo type, because he can't do it. There's also these 3 ducks that are in the movie, and I guess they're supposed to be funny, but it's almost like Jar Jar times 3. And that's not great.